So I've taken a few Pikipiki rides over the past few days, and I've always wanted to film them, and I finally have. So this first segment of Pikipiki ride is going to be from Nelson Mandela to Chekerini, where I usually get on the daladala to go to town. So as you can see here, I'm wearing a scarf over my head because usually these rides are pretty dusty. And we've got some women carrying lots of wood on their heads, heading into a construction zone here. 30 kilometers per hour. It's not miles per hour, but as you can see, it's not quite what we usually see in the U.S. In terms of a construction zone. It's just men basically digging trenches and putting rocks in it to make a drainage ditch along the side. Got some cattle, of course. What's a ride in Tanzania without a bunch of cattle? I wouldn't even know. Here we have the police checkpoint that Chekerini is named after. One time we actually had the police stop us and try to bribe us, but thankfully the driver just gave them maybe $2 and didn't actually ask us to pay. And then coming to town here, into Chekerini, we have right at the beginning of town is the mosque, so I always know, finally into Chekerini. So, and then you can see just, the buildings throughout town here. It's a pretty small little settlement, so not a whole lot going on. Just some shops and, hardware store, basic necessities. And here in the distance you can see the church, the Christian church, and the daladala. They sit there, so that's how I go. And then we have the return ride after I went to town, and I'm on my way back. This one I'm carrying, I think, 3 bags with me, so it was a little bit cumbersome to film this, but I did my best. This is a big truck coming up. Thankfully, my Pikipiki driver pulled over to the side, so sometimes they don't do that. You can kind of see Mount Meru there. It's a little bumpy. Just a little bit of scenery. We are coming up on some massive greenhouses. It's one of the commercial farming centers in the area. Another little checkpoint that the police usually aren't at for whatever reason. I'm not complaining though. And we are headed towards a bridge. It's pretty. My phone doesn't do well with the color saturation, but this bridge apparently is left over still from when the Germans built it during their colonial period in the early 1900s. Whether I believe that or not, I don't know. But best part of the ride, when you finally get on to the asphalt, and here we are passing another huge, much bigger agricultural center, which the lady that cuts my hair, her ex-husband may or may not run this farm. To be determined. I'll probably never find out. You can see a little bit of cattle in the field there. Lots of Pikipiki drivers. This fence to the right is actually the start of Nelson Mandela's property. It's way bigger than what the university actually takes up. But here we have a couple bar restaurants where I go eat sometimes. It's just outside of town. Get my chapati. And this restaurant to the left here is where I actually have had the best chai ever. And that's where I was playing with the girls that one day. But this is headed up to the entrance of Nelson Mandela. This daladala ride costs about $1.50. So this is the Pikipiki ride home from Tengeru. In the beginning here, I'm just walking from the daladala stop back to where you can catch Pikipikis. So I'm sorry it's a little bit wobbly. I was walking and trying not to be too conspicuous holding out my camera to film this, but this is a little bit bigger town than Chekerini, so there's a little bit more going on. as you can see. But you can see the Pikipiki drivers in the distance. There they are. So this guy in the white coat and the white hat, you can see here, I've actually ridden with him a few times before. And he speaks some pretty good English, which is a blessing here in Tanzania. But he is very knowledgeable. He last time I rode with him was asking me about like the social and political differences between Tanzania and the U.S. and like asking why I think, you know, the U.S. is so developed and Tanzania isn't. And he was giving me his own opinion, which, you know, doesn't look very favorably upon the European countries, but it happened. So, yeah. Just a couple shops on the way out of town. And this, we were passing Lake Deludi Resort, which there's, you know, the wall all around it, because it's primarily for foreigners. Europeans would come stay here because it's pretty expensive, but there's a small lake in this area that I've not seen. I don't, I've been told it's pretty, so maybe someday I'll suck it up and spend some money to go there. If I decide it's worthwhile. Probably I'd rather just eat cheese. But yeah, this goes on and on. So the road we usually take to go back to campus, that's actually quite short, is to the right here, but the Pikipiki driver said that we're going to go straight through this part that I've never been to before, because that other road was really dusty right now, which I'm not sure what his definition of dusty is, because in my opinion it's always really dusty, but oh well. I got to see a new part of town. This part was super rough though, man. There's tons of rocks sticking out of the dirt. So I'm not sure I would rather take this longer, bumpy ride compared to just getting a little dust, because dust is inevitable in Tanzania. These houses back here, I was actually really surprised at how nice they were. It's not typical for the rural part of Tanzania that I live in. And back to the tar road. That always means we're getting close to campus. This here in the distance you can see is Mount Meru. I think it's like the 8th largest, tallest mountain in Tanzania. So right across from campus, it's quite pretty. Oftentimes you can't actually see the peak because it's too cloudy. But this is getting up to campus now, and there's always, you can see there in the distance, some Pikipiki drivers, and there's always a woman or two selling some fruit or some nuts or something. Kwaheri, as we say in Tanzania. Kwaheri. Siku njema.